Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to completely shatter the illusion that your memory acts like a perfect video recording. We so often think of our minds as these highly secure, totally unchangeable vaults of information. But what if I told you the vault is actually left wide open every single time you access it? Think about your absolute favorite, most cherished childhood memory for a second. Do you trust it implicitly? You probably assume it functions just like a pristine video file saved on a hard drive somewhere in your brain, perfectly preserving the exact truth of what happened. Well, the science tells us a radically different story. According to cognitive neuroscience, we really need to stop thinking of our memory as a static, veridical archive. As this quote hits right on the head, it's actually a lot more like a dramatic performance. Your memory is an incredibly active, reconstructive engine. What's happening is your brain is constantly synthesizing fragments, cues, and expectations into a narrative that simply feels coherent to you. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be exploring 1. The perfect memory myth. 2. Hacking the human mind. 3. Your brain on false memories. 4. The 7 deadly sins. 5. The Mandela effect. And finally, 6. Why forgetting is a feature. Let's jump right into part 1, the perfect memory myth. For the longest time, we believed in what's known as consolidation theory. That's the idea that a memory is built exactly once, kind of like stacking a solid brick wall, and then it becomes permanent. But research shows that when you retrieve a memory, it actually enters a highly unstable state. It's a process called reconsolidation. Basically, recalling a memory literally breaks it down via the ubiquitin proteasome system, which actively degrades synaptic proteins. This creates a window of several hours where the memory has to be restabilized. And during this window, your memory is completely vulnerable to being updated, modified, or even totally corrupted by new information. Which brings us perfectly to part 2, hacking the human mind. You've got to see Elizabeth Loftus's shocking data on the misinformation effect. In a really famous 1974 study, participants watched a video of a car crash. Simple enough, right? They were then asked how fast the cars were going. But Loftus changed just one critical verb. If participants were asked how fast they were going when they smashed, they estimated almost 41 miles per hour. But if the word was just hit, the estimate dropped to 34. Even wilder, a week later, 32% of the people who heard smashed falsely recalled seeing broken glass in the video, compared to just 14% for the hit group. A single word literally contaminated their memory trace permanently. I mean, just think about what this means for the reliability of eyewitness testimony in a courtroom. And researchers didn't stop at car crashes. They moved on to entire life events. In the Lost in the Mall paradigm, participants were given real childhood stories gathered from their family, plus one completely fabricated story about being lost in a shopping mall at age 5. By repeatedly asking them to visualize it, a psychological process called imagination inflation, about 25% of people eventually claimed to legitimately remember the terrifying event. They even added their own vivid sensory details to the fake story. Scientists have even successfully implanted impossible memories into people, like meeting the Warner Brothers character Bugs Bunny at a Disney theme park. Your brain apparently couldn't care less about copyright infringement when it's constructing your past. So that leads to an obvious question, which is part 3, your brain on false memories. You might be wondering, does the brain actually know it's lying to you? Let's look at the actual circuitry. The hippocampus is highly activated when constructing memories. But the crazy thing is, it lights up exactly the same whether the memory is true or totally false. Its only job is to bind an item to a context. Now, the prefrontal cortex, on the other hand, is the part that attempts to step in and fact-check if the memory is real. Interestingly, when the prefrontal cortex drops the ball and fails to inhibit the hippocampus just confidently binds an item to the completely wrong context. The result? You get a vivid but entirely folk memory. To make sense of all this chaos, let's look at part 4. The 7 deadly sins. Researcher Daniel Schachter came up with this brilliant taxonomy categorizing our memory failures into 7 sins. The first 3 are sins of omission, like transience, which is just the gradual fading of information over time, or absent-mindedness, which is exactly why you can never find your keys. The next 4 are sins of commission, and this is where the brain actively distorts things. Bias, for instance, is your brain literally altering past memories to match exactly how you feel today. The big takeaway here, these aren't just annoying bugs in your biological software, they are the necessary costs of a brain designed for future flexibility rather than literal robotic accuracy. Now, one of the most fascinating and
honestly kind of devastating examples of a sin of commission is cryptomnesia. This is when your brain retrieves a memory, but essentially strips away the source tag, making you feel like you just had a brilliant, totally original idea. This phenomenon tricked absolute heavyweights like Friedrich Nietzsche, B.F. Skinner, and Sigmund Freud into accidentally plagiarizing the work of others. Studies actually show this happens most often in group settings. You get so hyper-focused on preparing your own response that your brain just completely fails to properly catalog what the person right before you just said. Now, what happens when we scale this up to a whole society? That is part 5, the Mandela effect.
Why on earth do so many of us vividly remember the Monopoly man wearing a monocle? Spoiler alert, he doesn't. He never has. This happens because our brains use visual heuristics and schemas. If you think of a wealthy 19th century plutocrat, your brain's default schema automatically includes a monocle. It just quietly fills in the visual gap for you. The exact same thing happens with Pikachu's tail, or assuming Darth Vader said, "Luke, I am your father," he actually just says no. And here's the kicker. When these false details get discussed socially, people actually adopt the group's memory to conform, cementing a massive collective illusion. And in our modern digital epoch, our memories are facing a brand new challenge. It's known as the Google effect. Just look at that number, 35%. That is the shockingly low percentage of adults today who actually have their own child's phone number memorized. When we believe a fact is going to be saved on a device, our natural recall just completely plummets. We no longer remember the information itself. Our brains just remember where to find it online, essentially outsourcing our minds to an external hard drive.
All right, let's wrap this all up with part 6, why forgetting is a feature.
Ultimately, your memory is purposefully discarding verbatim details to save metabolic space. This is a concept called trace minimalism, and it keeps only the gist, the absolute core lessons necessary to help you survive, learn, and adapt to an unpredictable future. So every single time you remember something, you're getting the opportunity to update your worldview. So the next time you are absolutely 100% certain about a detail from your past, you've got to ask yourself, are you actually remembering the event itself, or are you just remembering the last time you edited the script? Thanks so much for exploring this with me today. Keep questioning and keep learning.